now we have Supervisor Cortese here. Let's give him a hand. Thank you for coming, Supervisor.
Thank you. So, thank you for having me and welcoming me. And I know my staff has been here frequently, certainly many more times than I have. But I've been out in the area. Of course, many of you might have come out to the code enforcement sort of public safety meeting that we had up at it's the First Presbyterian or Foothill Presbyterian Church. Tripping over things here. Trying to get away from this podium here so I can see everyone. And you know, if there's anything going on where you feel I need to be here personally, that's the point I was trying to make. Absolutely, let us know. The district is so big. Normally, if I was covering a council district type of area, you would see probably just about every time you have a meeting, at least has somebody who's listening in and taking notes. But the district, just to put it in perspective, takes in half of Sunnyvale, all of North San Jose, meaning the Golden Triangle, all the way out back, really to the border of basically where our building is, the old city hall. I think Taylor is the boundary that Japantown area there. It takes in all that part of San Jose, all of the city of Milpitas, and then it comes in and it sweeps through here as a kind of the eastern boundary at certain points along White Road, at certain points a little further west, and certain points a little further east, like up on Fleming, but basically takes in the East Valley in this direction, which I'm very happy about because essentially from Berryessa to Evergreen is where I've spent almost all of the 56, almost 57 years of my life. So being here tonight is really kind of like being home, being in my old stomping grounds. The district does go all the way to Metcalf, so it covers essentially almost all of the District 8 Evergreen Council District, if you want to put it that way. So it's a lot of ground. Imagine if there was a community meeting like this in Sunnyvale tonight, and I was expected to be there, and wanted to hear, and maybe the District 8 roundtable going on, just being hypothetical, not necessarily all on the same night, but you know that happens. We get 3-4 requests a night. You really have to pick, because otherwise you have to have a helicopter and rush hour traffic to try to move around and get to places on time. So that's not an excuse. I just want you to know, all that said, this area, this community, I love just like you do. I'll be here if something's going on. We have a great number of staff. I thought Andres did a great job of representing Supervisor District 2's office here in terms of explaining a lot of things. He kind of took half my material, if not more. But that's not a bad thing. It shows you they're on their toes, they're in the office, they're working. In fact, one of the council members for City Council told me that he's personally continued to be the hardest working guy in that office. He's been there every day working hard. So we're lucky to have him over there, continue to make sure there's representation and staffing in the office. But I have really good people in my office as well. Laura McCabe is here. She's been, out at a lot of meetings, a lot of late night meetings. She's very effective, and she knows her way around the complex county budget that Andres was talking about, and the departments, particularly the health and hospital public health system. So if I can't answer a question tonight, I might actually turn to her and see if she knows more of a technical answer, because she's very, very good at that. But we have a few other people, thanks to you, the taxpayers. Somebody somewhere along the line recognized that these districts are so big and there are so many communities within the community and so many places to get to and so many issues and so many agencies within the county that there needs to be an adequate amount of staff. And so you'll never hear me complaining about that. We have great staff in the office. It's adequate. We're all busy. They work. I would suggest about 55 to 65 hours a week, nothing like a 40-hour week. The culture of our office really is to be a customer service office for you. And we will drop everything if there's a constituent issue, like this was talking about marijuana retail dispensary that pops up. much like he described his process, that's how we respond. It doesn't matter what issue it is. Now, I want to go a little further than that. Some of you may have heard me say this before, but don't worry about it if it's a city issue, a county issue, a federal issue, a state issue, because talk about complexity, who can figure that out? Okay, it's immigration, so you figure it's a federal issue, you can call the congressional office. You can call us, and we'll connect you with Sandra Soto and Zoe's office. We'll make sure that they're handling the issue. We'll stay with it and make sure 3 or 4 days later, a week later, that the ball wasn't dropped, that you're getting helped out. We do that within the county, we'll do that outside the county. You never get from us, well, here's the phone number of somebody else's office, why don't you call that and try that? That's what I call the runaround. It's very frustrating for people. So we can't really be a one-stop center for the entire county, but as to the constituents who call us or email us, we endeavor to follow things all the way through. So that's probably the most important message I could give you overall about the office. Let me just talk about a couple things, and a couple more already touched on a little bit. Maybe I have slightly different or additional information. The supervisorial race in this district, again, the filing was closed tonight. At last I heard there was 5 candidates, there might be 6 or more. We all know how that goes, but we'll have to check now and see what happened at 5 o'clock and who finally filed.
There's 5. I just looked at them.
Did you just look? Okay, so there's 5 candidates. That almost assures there's going to be a runoff. The election is going to be June 4th. And it's hard to talk about elections being on election day anymore because about 80% of the people will vote by mail. It might be higher in this election because it's a special election. And that really starts a lot earlier, a month earlier, basically. So May 6th, those of you who are registered voters, which I'm guessing is most of you, you're going to be getting ballots in the middle, May 6th, May 7th, you can vote right then. It's a pretty short time frame between now and then if you think about the fact that people are already mobilizing for the 2014 elections in June and November. So I want you to know that date. Start thinking about early May, and especially in terms of your programming. If you're going to do any candidate forums or participate in them or bring people in here, really you want to think about well before May 6th. Just forget the June date because it's going to be too late. I would say by May, my guess is that by May 17th, even though we won't know the results yet, May 17th, May 20th, the election will be over for June. Now, what will be over is with 5 candidates, you're going to get a runoff in all likelihood. It's just a mathematical thing, right? And that's scheduled for, I don't know the date here, it's about 60 days later. The registrar of voters needs enough time to redo everything, ballots and everything else. So essentially, it looks like we're not going to, barring something really dramatic in June, and I've heard of landslide by one of the candidates, you're going to see a runoff and you won't have a supervisor in the office until essentially the August meeting of the Board of Supervisors. The board is recessed in July, just like the City Council in San Jose. Typically, unless there's an emergency, it's the 1 month where we don't convene. Staff, county executive appreciates it. They probably get more work done when we're not there than any other time of the year. But that's that schedule. You can apply to vote by mail much later than what I was implying. So don't feel like just because I said the election may be over, you won't know what the results are. But if a lot of people have voted by mid-May, it's going to sort of, the ballots are in the hopper and kind of be predestined as to what's going to happen. So you can still pull the mail ballot all the way up to May 20th. Okay, so those are some important dates to remember about that. I think Andres covered the marijuana dispensary issue well. But let us know anytime something like that is going on. Because the important message that he brought out is let us know right away. And again, that's probably a perfect example. Don't worry if it's a city issue, a county issue, in your mind. It's not your, the way I see it, I'm a citizen here too. We, as citizens, we shouldn't have to worry about what level of government it is. What should happen is when we contact somebody in government, an elected office especially, we should just get responsiveness. That's the way I see it, and especially with something like that. I will give you a little bit of commentary beyond what just happened with this code enforcement issue. One of the biggest concerns I have about the way the marijuana dispensary system is set up in the city of San Jose, which is where it's regulated, has permitted legal operations if it meets city guidelines, is that there's really no teeth in the enforcement side of the city's ordinance, at least none that are being actually enforced. And let me just give you an example. Most marijuana dispensaries, this is not an indictment on marijuana use, or an endorsement of one or the other, but there's sort of a disincentive for the city to do a lot of enforcement because the city's been having budget problems and they're bringing in several $100,000 a year and growing in taxes. And we've been concerned about that. I have, because we're mentoring kids out here, young people, who are getting club cards from dispensaries, right? The dispensary, you're supposed to have a card from the Public Health Department of the County of Santa Clara to buy at one of these dispensaries. There's only a handful of those that have ever been requested by the Public Health Department. 1.8 million people in the county, there's only a handful of those. I bet you half the people in this room have seen, a club card, somebody has one or something like that. Is that a big problem? No, it's a big problem when a teenager has one of those, can buy as much marijuana as he wants, not for himself, but to redistribute on the market, on the black market, to people who it isn't prescribed for, who don't need it, perhaps are too young. We know now 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds haven't really formed. I think most of us knew this a long time ago, but science tells us haven't even completely formed a rational mind yet. So, having a black market going on that's unregulated, having the city benefit from the tax revenue from that, it's a little bit of a conflict for me. And I've talked to the Sheriff's Department about it. I think at some point we may see our Santa Clara County Sheriff stepping up enforcement. They can do that. They have a jurisdiction to do that. And to go ahead and start, fleshing out who should have cards, who shouldn't have cards, and who's taking advantage of the rules, if you will. Last little point here, BART. The good news about BART to San Jose, I always feel like just saying Barry yes, I think that's our district, right? And that's where it's coming, and I'm actually kind of very pleased about that. I'm not pleased about the fact that the light rail extension to East Ridge got shuttled in the process, and we can talk about that some more if you want. But be aware that there's going to start becoming traffic closures, road closures, those kinds of problems because of the park construction. It's well underway now. And it's on schedule, on budget as far as what we've been told. But in places like Capitol Avenue, down towards your neck of the woods, Trade Zone Boulevard, various Road, Neighborhood Road, and Sierra Road, and Lundy, you're actually going to see closures this spring because of the work that's going on, presumably mostly underground work. And a lot of reductions in lanes going on. So it's going to take some patience, but when the project opens up here, it's going to be huge. It's going to be huge for us. It's going to be huge for the people in the East Bay in terms of economic development up and down the route, job creation, and of course just getting around without burning a lot of gas. So I'm at the end of my time allotted. I may have time for one or two questions, and I'm always able to step out for a sidebar if somebody wants to follow me outside and ask me a question as well. Thank you.
On the pot club, the sign says that you just go up the road to the other office. Does that mean that we're talking about a zoning category where residents are not likely to complain? Is there any, what's the main difference between the operation of the road and kind of where over here by the sidewalk?
Well, presumably it's all in city jurisdiction, so that you can open. I think Andres was being previous on this, but you can, or whoever else was speaking to it, somebody was speaking to it, but it's really just a zoning and permitting issue, a typical land use issue. This operation never went through that process. That's sort of the fundamental difference from the city's perspective. They're saying, well, we're saying you can't have 1 or 2 or 3. But part of that permitting process is also going to take into account what's in the proximity of that store, how close they are to schools and things like that, as I recall. So it may be that they always say this one's not okay, but they continue to allow the other one to exist. That's how I can explain it.
Okay, one more question. Go ahead.
I have a question, and it's regarding marijuana too. I live in San Carlos District, and the only reason I'm here because I saw that marijuana issue here. My problem is that the city of San Jose allows people to grow marijuana outdoors. My backdoor neighbor has about maybe 17 plants, and it smells like skunk. And my other neighbor across the street, her backdoor neighbor was growing too, but they were renters. Mine is a homeowner. And I wish that the county and the city would ban outdoor marijuana in residential neighborhoods. I already live in a high crime rate area, and I can't enjoy my backyard during the summer months because the smell is so strong. Anyone that's invited to my house, people come over and they go, "What's that smell?" Well, it's marijuana, and
Let me just ask you, have you been told it's legally there?
oh yeah, officers have come to my home because they wanted to check the back, but there's nothing they can do. And there's a city, people think that you can grow up owning up to 6 plants. That's not true, and that's not enforceable. And right now, the DA was, an officer told me that the DA told them that unless we know for a fact they're selling it, they're so busy they don't want to do it, they can't do it.
Why don't you, I'll tell you what, first thing tomorrow morning, if you give me your name and number, I think you're getting partially correct information, but let us get a hold of the sheriff's department. I mean, they're taking out thousands of acres of marijuana on a pretty much a monthly basis. So you can't just grow what you want, where you want, just
If
because
you
it's
have a
your
medical
property.
card, you can, and I sure brought it, but,
If it's a medical card that was obtained through the County of Santa Cruz Public Health Department, that's what I'm telling you, is most of the cards that people are flashing out there aren't,
okay.
yeah, they aren't those. So let's just check on it. I mean, if somebody's, I'm all for private property rights, and I think we all are when it comes to our own backyard. So if somebody's within the law, we don't want to harass them or anything like that, but we need to make sure that that fact pattern that you're describing actually does fit within the law. And, if there's problems now, I heard your next point, maybe the law's a little too liberal in terms of what it allows, in terms of backyard growing and so forth. And I would agree with you that if it is for just nuisance reasons alone, it should be looked into. We have a wide ordinance in the city of San Jose, although the council was adopted. You can't just put anything in your yard. A lot of people felt it was too stringent, but there are ways to deal with nuisance, just nuisance alone, irrespective if it's a legal thing.
Well, I did go to city council 2 weeks ago, and I, with a petition,
Yeah.
and no one was telling me what you just told me, so I definitely talked to
Well,
them.
that's City Hall 2015. Okay, we want to help you. First thing tomorrow, we'll get right on there for you. So that's probably the undersheriff will call you tomorrow, try to straighten it out.
Okay, let's give them a hand.